What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. I am Jack Allen. Please go follow me on Twitter at Kojak Podcast, Instagram at Conspiracy or JAC. As you know, I've been kicked off before, so I had to change the username so it's not so. I had it so organized for so long, and for it, like I did last episode, bear with me for a sec as I get the live video and or the link and post it on my Twitter, since again the VPN slows down my computer too much, so I can't put Twitter on my phone. But if you guys didn't check out, go follow me on all those places. You want to support the show, conspiracyorjustacoincidence.com, and they have a Patreon and a Venmo. So if you want to support me there, that's awesome. Or if you can leave a review, Spotify now has reviews. So if you could leave some there, that really means the world to me. And I love reading them. I get so many nice comments, guys. Thanks so much for all the comments. They truly it is a lot of work, as I always say, to do all this stuff. It's like another job. So anytime I get a nice comment, it really means a lot. So thank you so much. All right. I'm live there on my Twitter. So now we're all set. So today's episode, I don't have pictures today. Again, I ran out of a Happy New Year, Stephen. Thank you. So last episode, we started working on Operation Glado. And so go listen to that episode if you didn't check it out. You won't be too lost here, but there's so many good facts. And I always try to do like an overview because I know we're all busy, so you can't watch every show. But I got the book is Operation Glado. Just look it up. Paul Williams is the author, and it is such an amazing book. Like I said, I'm going to have to do 3 parts because there's so many notes, so many characters come into play. And just like the quickest cliff notes of last one, basically we talked about the CIA started in 1947 from the National Security Act. It was the baby of Allen Dulles and Wild Bill Donovan, just evil people that are corrupt, hate you, just horrible people. And they worded it in a way just like he was a lawyer, Allen Dulles, so he knew how to write things, and he wrote it so there's no regulation and no oversight at all. And like, they're not required to tell you salaries. They're not required to tell you how many people they have employed. They're not required to, the government, Congress. There is zero government. The only person they have to answer to, which changed in 1974 after the church hearings, was that if they had to let the president know if he wanted what they were doing, what other operations they were running, and they didn't even, or it was how much money they were spending. So barely the president has zero, and they're going to tell the truth. They lie about everything. That makes no sense. But I always we hear this in the conspiracy world, the CIA's running the CIA runs the drugs, the CIA, and I believed all these things, but I had no real evidence to back that up. And this book really helped me understand and I'm sure you guys know this, but the CIA, they're a shadow government. And I know we all know that, but they literally have zero, to oversight. No one can check them. No one can ask, hey, what are you doing over there in the Middle East? How many you're spending? How are you affording having all these people on your payroll? Not that they have to tell you how many people they have on their payroll, but they are in everything. They've started banks. They've started armies. So to say that maybe they've started a social media site is no way at all far-fetched. They literally started venture capitalist firms. They've started furniture firms. Or stores. God knows how much stuff they are involved in. We have zero clue. And so that just really, and I go through these phases of that so-and-so who's big in the movement, that's weird, and I'm just saying, I'm not saying any names or anything like that, but it makes you question everything because you have no idea how these people are they could be funding everything. They were funding the drug trade. They were helping bring drugs in. So what's to say they wouldn't fund something to cause chaos in their own country? It goes so deep. So we talked about that. We talked about Paul Helliwell, and this was his idea. The CIA, they have this organization they're going to run to run counterintelligence against foes and to help our allies. That's in their the National Security Act, whatever that means, whatever that means. But Paul Helliwell, they're saying, all right, we want to have a huge thing. We want to have we don't want, we don't need tax dollars because then they'll be able to dig into what we're doing. So how can we fund fighting communism? And Paul, he was in China, and he saw that the Chinese, they were fighting at this time. It was the communists versus the KMT, like the capitalists, essentially. That was Chiang Kai-shek or something like that. And he saw that the way that he supported his army was through heroin trade. And Paul said, well, why don't we do that? Paul also helped Disney acquire the land for Florida. So great guy, that he really cared. He just wanted an amusement park. He loved kids having fun, and that's why he helped them. Again, who knows how deep the CIA goes? We have no idea. They could run televisions, which they do. They could run news networks, which they do. But you can't know. We have no idea of knowing what they are in, because anytime they get questioned, like they did in the church committee, that's how we found out about MK Ultra and all that stuff. It was national security. So just totally out of control, too much power. So we talked about Paul Helliwell, and that's the beginning then was the heroin. That's how they decided they were going to support their fight against communism, to keep all these troops in Europe and any place that communism was encroaching on the God-protected capitalism. Not that we have capitalism here, because we don't have a free market at all. We're totally manipulated. It's a corporate socialist system where they want to squash competition, not create competition. That's why you have a million regulations. And then you say, like, oh, yeah, we all deserve health insurance. But then you require small businesses who are starting out, who can't afford that, to have that for their employees. And that eliminates any small business that might have a better product, or they'll just buy you out, or they can just level you with lawsuits. I'm getting off topic, but so they did this to fund communism. They had what they all had was stay behind units, and they called them gladiators, hence Operation Gladio. So that's basically my recap. The last big fact I wanted to mention from last episode was the Vatican was involved. They were laundering the money. But in 1947, the CIA just started bringing in the heroin, and there was 20,000 heroin addicts in the United States. There was only a ton of heroin produced each year worldwide, so very not popular. And then in 20 years, it was at, I think, 150,000 addicts. So it, quadrupled, eight-drupled, whatever the word is. The production of heroin went from a ton to something like 30,000 tons. And that there was not a single large drug bust in 20 years. Now that's changed today. Obviously, drug bust, that's how they don't want the drugs. They don't want to stop the drugs coming in. They want to get the cash on the trucks going out. That's why we have such a huge drug problem here, because they take that money, civil asset seizure, and they'll take it all, and you'll never get it back. Even if you're not convicted, they'll still keep it. But yeah, so they were doing this, and it never stopped. Why would it stop? It's $1 billion industry. And this ties in even with my serial killer episode, like how all these little humans go missing. Well, that's drugs is the first largest black market moneymaker, and little person, when you're stuck at a red light or on the highway, is the second number two. It's like $10 billion, $20 billion a year industry. So you think the CIA is going to say, whoa, that's against our morals. Yeah, we'll get a whole pot. We'll get, millions of people addicted to opiates, but kids, no, we can't go there, right? So it's just a sham. And we talked about the Vatican, and Freemasonry also comes involved and along also with this group called P2. And P2 was this essentially Freemasonic lodge in Italy, where everyone powerful was a member. To get into P2, you had to disclose incriminating or embarrassing information about yourself. I'm sure they just wanted to do that to make you feel like you were part of a club, or that was your boys. Oh, look how embarrassing that is. Obviously, that's not why they did it. So if you ever threaten to talk out, well, they had that info on you, And they also tons of mob guys, so you knew that they'll kill you if you start speaking out. So we left off, there's this guy named Michel Sindona, and he was the money man. I talked briefly about him last episode. He was helping funnel the money into the Vatican Bank, which, again, you can't look at any records. It is totally locked down. They like burn their records once a month. So even if you somehow got in, you wouldn't get any information. No regulation, no oversight. If the IOR, which they did, committed mass fraud, which they did, there is no recourse. You can't sue them. You can't. Maybe a paper would write about it now, and maybe you'll get something. But look at the priest issues, and that was the other thing. The Vatican, I mean, they have billions of assets. I mean, think they've had this powerful church since when? 300. I mean, it's been so powerful for so long. They've accumulated all these assets. They put them in funds and trust, and it just keeps increasing but that money, does that go to help the church? Does that go to help maybe your local Catholic school is down on admission, that's barely getting by? Does that help them? No. None of that money goes to a church. None of that money goes to a priest. None of that money goes to kids that are struggling or starving. The Catholic Church is helping. All that money is within the Vatican and accessible by the Pope, who controls it all, and like his top dog cardinals. So the churches, they survive solely on your donations, which is just disgusting. And I mean, the Catholic Church has so many things wrong with it, but every organization does. So Sindona, he was the big money guy. And the way he got into power was so the mob gets unified in 1931 by Luciano. By 57, his underboss, Genovese, places a hit on this other big boss, and they had this big meeting, all like I think it was in like West Virginia, somewhere. It's kind of remind me of, I think it's the one looks like a comedy. Oh, God. I don't know. But anyway, they were all meeting there. The police raided the event because it was like a local police force, like a West Virginia area or Kentucky. It was somewhere in the boonies. And so they raided it. And this was after J. Edgar Hoover for 30 years assured the American public, there is no organized crime in America. There is no Cosa Nostra. For 30 years, the FBI lied about not being organized crime when they were working with the organized crime. But anyway, Genovese was all, acting like top dog. Lucky gets upset, and he sets up a witness who didn't actually witness anything to say he saw Genovese making huge drug buys, and that knocked out Vito Genovese and got put away for 15 years. So the fall of Vito led to the rise of Michel, and everyone in the mafia wanted to be boys with him. He used the mob and the CIA funds to create shell company after shell company in like Liechtenstein, in Switzerland, in the Bahamas. He purchased a private bank, and all these funds, the mafia getting these funds from the drug trade. Where are they getting the drugs? The CIA. So this is why I say the CIA starts banks. They start armies. And then they use the Vatican to transfer the drug money from the IOR, which is the Vatican Bank, for the purpose of Glado. And all these big people were also involved with it, like another bank, who was Sir Jocelyn Hambro, an elite family, and even Mormonism was involved. There's so much stuff about Joseph Smith. That's the guy who started Mormonism. He was a crystal gazer. At 13, that's when the angel talked to him about golden tablets. But if he told anybody, they would be gone. He told somebody. I mean, imagine if a 13-year-old came up to you today and said, dude, I'm talking to angels, and they're telling me there's solid gold tablets out in the woods. Would you believe him? But it's amazing that he was able to create this. I don't want to call it a cult, but I don't know what to use for it. You know what I mean. But so even Mormonism got involved. This guy, David Kennedy, he partnered with Sedona and served as the debt manager of the Federal Reserve on the side. So you see how deep this goes? It goes to the Fed. He owned the 7th largest bank in the country, billions in assets, shares in Opus Dei Bank in Barcelona. Opus Dei is like, there's so much stuff about them, but they're in South America and all over, but they're another Vatican like offshoot. I like briefly looked at it. I'm sure you guys know more about Opus Dei than I do. I've just heard the name. But Kennedy's bank conveniently worked with the IOR, and his bank was called Continental Illinois. And it was another conduit for the CIA for funds to funnel into the newly created BPF, which was Sedona's bank. He would go on to buy 2 more banks, making a total of 3, and an American food processing plant. Odd diversifying, but and the CIA would funnel the money in Chicago to Continental Illinois Bank, then transfer to Sedona's banks, then to the IOR. And why I said that about Chicago is Chicago, if you guys, I mean, because of my previous life, I watched so many drug documentaries. Maybe you guys have too. But Chicago is a huge hub for drug trafficking, huge. And like logistically, I guess it's the most major metropolitan area, like in the middle of the country. But you would think, these, you could just go to San Diego or Los Angeles. You could just go to New York. You go to Atlanta. But it is a huge place, like cartel people, and you see how dangerous Chicago is. It's like the most, they call it Chirac. And the reason why is because of Operation Glado in the 60s and 50s was using these banks from David Kennedy in Chicago. And that's why Chicago has become the insane drug-filled city that it is. And Sedona's banks, they flourished. Billions of dollars from the smack trade that flowed from Sicily to then Switzerland. And you think he became a billionaire? No, he didn't become a billionaire. These elite, they used you, or these people, until they don't need you anymore. And we're going to find out what happened to him. But in the coming decade, he had $22 billion in his personal account, thinking, I'm untouchable. I work with the CIA. I'm working with the Pope. Vanished. All gone from his accounts. They took it all. And these people are willing to lose millions as well to achieve their NWO. Like, I mean, there's so many things they do that would cause, like there's just so many, they take losses all the time because they already have unlimited wealth, essentially. It's not about that. They've already reached they can get whatever they want, but it's about power and trying to create this utopia that they think we're there at the top and we're all this bottom pyramid level. There is no middle class. Like David Rockefeller, he lost hundreds of millions for Chase Manhattan and South America investment. The CIA told him to invest in that, or he told the CIA that we should invest in that. Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for stopping by the Gravy Show. But no, he was not an awesome banker either. He was stealing from many of the accounts he had. He would send it to the Vatican, and the reason why they use the Vatican is, like I said, their accounts are locked, and you would have to pay them 15% of whatever you put in to wash your account. Just so criminal. It's so criminal. And if anyone would ask to speak with the manager at one of Sedona's banks, they'd be like, "Well, I'm the manager." No, but they'd give them the runaround. They'd say if they threaten to contact authorities. Let's just say, when you're a mob bank, concrete shoes, you're not going to be able to swim. They just would get rid of you. If you were too annoying, they would first give you all your money back. Like say, here, take your money out. They'd give and then it was second step. If you tried to escalate, you're going to get killed. And you only know how many people that happened to. And then Sedona, the Vatican, and just like they do today, they play with the stock market. And if they would lose, they closed the bank, opened another, and they opened an international bank. It was called Money Rex. It was created in 1964 at 850 client banks, conducted over $200 billion a year. And the rich and powerful could squirrel away enormous fortunes in foreign banks for that 15% commission. They kept a private ledger, of course, for blackmail reasons. And in 1967, the IRS finally caught on. And instead of focusing, not that the IRS job is the heroin aspect of it or psychedelics or all that stuff, but they caught on. CIA stopped it dead in its tracks. And so it seems like, and I'm sure we kind of all can agree on that, the CIA is top dog compared to the DEA, the ATF. The CIA, if they arrest their guy, which they've done many times, their informant, quote unquote, or paid employee who's not technically a member, he's like an associate. The DA, there's been quotes, the heads of DA will be like, well, every big investigation we do, we find out that the top guy is involved with the CIA. So, and all this under justified to stop communism. In 69, Sindona was the most powerful financier in Italy. 6 banks, hotel chains, 500 other companies he owned. 40% of shares traded were under his control. So you can see how much power would come from that. If you own 40% of a stock, well, if you want to manipulate that stock and you want to play like the future, the options, trading stuff, if you want to bring it down 10 cents, you'll bring it down to, you can flip this so quickly and you can guarantee yourself to make. That's what they do with silver. That's exactly what JP Morgan does with physical silver. Physical silver is way devalued. Why is it way devalued? Because JP Morgan floods the market with paper silver contracts that could never even be filled. If one of those big ones was like, because contracts work like you either need to give me the stock or the cash at the end of the deal. If someone called in on one of those, like a huge multi-million dollar contract, it would crash. It would disrupt everything they've done. But they probably wouldn't let you do that because they don't want you to. They don't want you to win. They want them to win. And that same year, 67, the Vatican was in trouble as Italy was about to remove their tax exemption status, which would require them to dish out $250 million a year. So the Vatican was getting nervous. Sindona offered to solve these issues, and the Pope handed him an agreement that said he would be the leading banker of the Roman Curia, or the Vatican's investments, sole controller of billions of dollars of black funds. And what kind of assets did the Vatican Bank hold? Well, they had some Rothschild Bank in France. They had some stock in Chase Manhattan, some in Morgan Bank, GM, GE, Bethlehem Steel, construction companies, Italy's water company. This was the kicker. The Vatican held shares in a pharma company that produced contraceptive pills. So I thought that the Catholic Church was anti all of this stuff, but yet they're supporting a pharmaceutical company that's sole product is contraception pills. Insane. Just so hypocritical. These transactions would sometimes find their way to this company Paribas, and that David Kennedy's bank was linked there. And this guy, another guy that worked there, frauded people out of $504 million. And the guy that frauded, his name was Auchi, or Auche. But like Sindona, strong ties to the intelligence community. For many years, he was the bag man for Saddam Hussein. Guys that we started a war over. We funded Saddam Hussein, gave him all his weapons, and we don't know. No regular person knows that. They call that a conspiracy theory. But that's what we do. Or not we. That's what the CIA does. This Auchi guy also served as a major contributor of the political campaign of Barack Obama. What are the odds? Sir, birds of a feather flock together. Rockefeller family also had shareholders in Paribas, the Nod Me Auchi. At one point, Sindona liquidated the Vatican's holdings in Italian companies. Overnight, people in Italy that are invested in their stock market, they lost everything because God knows how much money the Vatican had in the Italian stock market. It tanked all the stocks. Unemployment, cost of living, everything these people lost. In 1972, Sindona was engaging in trading worthless stock to create a false market with Gulf and another Western's motion picture. So at the same time, he's creating worthless stock with this Gulf and Western companies. Western's motion picture company was Paramount Pictures, was working on the filming of The Godfather, glamorizing life in the mafia. So just super ironic that one of the companies that he's committing fraud with is at that time, like a subsidiary, is filming The Godfather, which is glamorizing life in the mafia. And again, this is what the CIA does. They create opinions. You don't even know. I've been brainwashed. You've been brainwashed. We've been propagandized. And that's again, how I got into my previous life. Because you hear this as a kid, like this is how you're cool. And just like this, glamorizing life in the mafia. At the same time, they're stealing from they're causing people's demise. Sindona's Vatican cash owned Paramount Studios where the film was shot. Thus, I already just said that. In 1969, the communists continued to gain power. So that was big in the last episode. That's the justification for selling heroin to innocent inner city communities is to stop communism. In Italy, they're funneling millions to stop the communists from gaining power. That was like supposedly the CIA's biggest fear. And probably people in the CIA thought they were doing a good thing. It wasn't. It wasn't. It was only the people at the top that knew this was just like a Hegelian dialectic, just the boogeyman to justify, to create money for themselves and tyranny and to steal your freedoms and fear. So the communists are gaining power after 20 years of them working in Italy. And so they bring out this is now when the CIA excels, false flag terrorism. So how do you stop to get Italians to hate communism? Well, you give them fear. So Kissinger, Nixon, they're both aware of how much the communists are gaining in Italy. They knew the CIA was giving millions to that Freemasonic P2 lodge, and they wanted to even give Sindona more. And this isn't an R versus D thing. We're going to find out. It doesn't matter. So like in the first major attack was in Italy in December, 17 people killed, 88 injured. The victims were farmers depositing meager earnings in the bank. Was it attributed to actually did it? P2 or the CIA? No. Left-wing radicals were rounded up, 80 suspects. The lead anarchist was arrested, being interrogated, and he slipped on a banana peel, fell out of the fourth floor window at the police station. He died. The Italian court said he I'm putting up quote tweets, lost consciousness and fell. He fell so hard that he broke a 4-story window with his head and fell to his death. Right. I wonder if people like in that time when they read that, they're like, that seems a little weird. I mean, he lost consciousness and then fell out of a window. But the Italian police arrested the real guy a few months later. He said, "I'm working for the CIA." His quote was, "The life of everyone is manipulated by those with more power. In my case, I accept that I have been a puppet in the hands of an idea." I think that's a really awesome quote. Franco Fido was his name. And there's just attack after attack. The one that was organized by the Black Prince Borghese, that was like the Italian royalty before they went to a democratic, before Mussolini and all that stuff. But car bombs, all these blames on communists. In 1971, they put a bomb in a train station, killed 12, injured 105. CIA and P2 and the Freemason Lodge. They did it again, just over and over. And P2 was so powerful. This group spread worldwide, but they had the news anchors, they had the trade union bosses, they had governing officials, they had judges. Everybody that was powerful was involved in P2. And so no investigation went ever the way they didn't want it to go, because these guys were all in this Freemasonic brotherhood. And when the communists are gaining power, the CIA asked, how much would it take to totally control everything? And they said, P2 said $250 million, we will control Italy. And I'm sure they got it, right? It's not like there is no price to stop communism. Sarcasm. And then there was this story, or like Gelly. Hey, Carl, what's up, dude? So there's this guy, Gelly. So Gelly, he was the leader of P2. He was the worshipful master, which again, P2, it means something in Italian, but it's a Freemasonic lodge, essentially. And Gelly, he wrote up like it's this white paper, plan of democratic rebirth, and the police found it in the bottom of a false bottom in his daughter's suitcase. But this had all of his plans of what he wanted to do to Italy. And again, nothing happens to him, not at this time. But false flag after false flag. Kissinger Italy's prime minister, in 1978, he was kidnapped at a meeting because he was trying to unify the communists, the socialists, the Christian Democrats. And Kissinger previously warned him, he was so evil, you must not try to unify political forces in your country or you will pay dearly. He has like a real raspy voice. And the military secret service, of Italy, who do they blame it on? Do they blame it on P2? They blame it on the CIA? No, they blamed it on, of course, the communists. And 37,000 houses were searched. 6 million people were questioned when this guy got kidnapped. I mean, that's huge, right? Like our president getting kidnapped. That's what happened to this guy. And I talked to my friend John from We've Read the Documents, he does more like he's so knowledgeable. But so another player in this story of the PM getting kidnapped was a guy named Steve Pezesnik. Now, Steve Pezesnik is huge in the letter that shall not be named movement. He was CIA. He worked with all P2. He went to Italy when all of this happened, and he's even involved in this. Like, it's just crazy how these names, they don't go away. They may leave the farm and leave the group, but they will always be involved. And this guy, look him up. Steve Pezesnik is him and his brother. John did a few episodes. I haven't gotten to watch them yet. But yeah, he's huge in conservative Twitter. He pushes the art side of things, and he's an evil dude. He's a manipulator. Regardless, the prime minister, after his body was found, left in the trunk of a car parked to an ancient Roman amphitheater, which, I wonder, they were so big on symbolism and like metaphors, just interesting outside of Roman theater, like Abe Lincoln, like JFK, just weird. But his quote was, Pezesnik or whatever, "We had to sacrifice Aldo Moro, Italy's PM, to maintain the stability of Italy." What does that mean? What does that mean? And what does these terror attacks means? The CIA infiltrated all these communist groups as well. So they had their freedom fighters, quote unquote, or guerrilla warfare fighters working for them, doing terror attacks. But at the same time, they're paying for people to infiltrate these groups, to cause strife, to cause chaos, to faction, to fraction, to break up the cohesiveness of these groups. Like the Red Brigades, that was the communists in Italy. I mean, they were so out of their league. Just like if any of you tried to start a militia, and I make this joke, you've been infiltrated. They've got your name on a folder, probably like they have all of ours, to be honest, but they're watching you like a hawk. And that's what they did there. The Red Brigade, they went to join forces with the French Hyperion League, which was also a left-leaning group. Well, the French Hyperion League's language school was started by the CIA, who also worked with Palestine Liberation Organization, Red Army faction of Germany, and other left organizations. So they were working together with the CIA while the CIA is planting false flag operations on them. And the worst attack was this, and then we'll get off the false flags. But in 1980, a time bomb in a suitcase exploded in a train station. 84 people were killed, 200 wounded. Blamed again on the communists. It was not the communists. It was a sophisticated device with TNT and Composition B, which was specifically used at that time by the U.S. military. P2 was involved in the investigation. They covered up. They covered up that mistake and anything else. They pointed the journalist in the direction they wanted. And eventually, like, there was so much evidence that wasn't the communists. They blamed it on the European National Fascist Group. And lucky for them, totally coincidental, I'm sure. At the same time this investigation is going on, they take credit for other false flag attacks in Europe. So it was pretty obvious to point these guys out. I'm sure, again, that these people were also infiltrated, and either if they did do the attacks, they were encouraged by the CIA. If they didn't do the attacks, they had somebody who was maybe a little lower IQ accept blame for that. So they brushed that away. But how sick is that? This body that is supposed to look out for you and me against enemies and all this stuff, they kill all the time. Do you think any of the CIA members felt bad for killing 200 people in a train station, or for whatever it was, 80 people? Do you think they cared that their families weren't going to get to see their loved one anymore? No, they don't care. All is fair in this fight against supposed communism. it's just disgusting. Like, how do you live with yourself? How do you go to sleep at night knowing that you're ruining lives of your neighbor, of your community? And yet then you act like you're this amazing American hero. You make movies about how amazing you are, how you're stopping the world from going to hell. No, you're the one driving us there. And the Gladio was not just in Italy. It was in France. It was in Greece. It was in Spain. In Spain again, Turkey, Germany, all funded by the CIA and the drug trade. So think like, I mean, look, all these countries all over Europe, thousands of people. How are they paying for it? They're paying for all these people, the weapons, the transport, everything, whatever, per diems to eat food, everything, all paid by the drug trade. So didn't stop there. Latin America, there's commies are infecting them there. And I use this word like commies, like communism obviously has never worked. The Bolsheviks were so evil, disgusting human beings. But I don't know what the answer is, because every economic system we've had in the last 300 years has been manipulated, has been driven to either work or not work. Like I said earlier, we aren't free market. We are nowhere near free market economy here. So to say like, oh, look how great this capitalism is and look how bad that is. If I had to pick, I'd absolutely pick this in America. But it's not even like, do you know what I mean? I don't know I'm so confused half the time what works. All I know their goal is, they don't care if it's called communism. They don't care if it's called capitalism. They don't care if it's called socialism. All they want is the elite people at the top, the corporate socialists, the Rockefellers, the Bezoses, the Gates. They want to own a monopoly where you cannot challenge them, and you all to be the bottom rung, just getting by, maybe just enough not to revolt. And that's their goal. That's why they push this equality thing. That's why they push this diversity thing. They don't do it because they care about people that are maybe disadvantaged. They do that because while pushing this equality, you're going to be able to knock out the middle class. So now to be equal, we're all just going to be bottom, eating bugs, living in the pot. And that's the goal. Yes, the goal is also chaos, Susan. I agree. So Latin America, we're taking a little trip south of the border. If I had Macarenas, I'd be shaking them. And Latin America got its own name. So they changed it from Gladio. They said, new place, new me, who dis, Operation Condor. I don't know why. I should have looked. What is Condor? Condor. But yeah. So new drug, new year, who dis again. And as we know, what comes from South America? Cocaine. So this was developed in the 1950s. It started, and the idea, so there was this Brazilian war college. And hang on for this. This is where we're going to get into the Pope, how evil the Pope, all of them, the past tons of them have been so evil. But the guy that's sitting there right now, we're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about the other popes before him. And I know so little about the popes. Again, you guys know, I'm sure many of my listeners, like Carl, who's going to be on my show the 20th. You guys know probably more than I do, but just so evil. So this is going to be a crazy part of the story. But basically, the current pope, who was clearly super Christian, and I don't know what this note was, but anyway, so this Brazilian war college, they were training people, CIA training these guys to have a certain set of beliefs, like they do now at our colleges. And Brazil, they took Woodrow Wilson's quote seriously, that it was Brazil's job to create a safe and democratic free enterprise in South America. Well, that sounds great, but what does that mean? That means, hey, let the United Fruit Company come into South America, rape and pillage your resources, and provide slave labor for us. And if you stand up for that, you're a communist. You are evil. And that's the kind of propaganda they push out. Students at said college were trained by the CIA. A guy who organizes a coup in all these countries in South America. They all attended this Brazil War College. The 1964 graduates of the college formed the junta, which junta is like coup. Junta, that overthrew the left-leaning democratically elected government. So the CIA, like how we went to Afghanistan because they hated us for our freedom. Well, that doesn't really work because the CIA has overthrown countless democratically elected presidents, prime ministers, because they didn't like them. So no, we're not spreading freedom. If anything, we're stifling freedom. They're just so gross. But the coup was successful, and from this, $20 million just magically showed up after the coup was planned, or during the coup planning in Brazil. Within 2 years, 50% of industry was controlled by foreign interests. By 71, even less Brazilians and South Americans controlled the companies that they started. Could you imagine if in America, well, I guess we kind of already have that. We have China controls lots of companies, TikTok, but not 50%. But imagine like your home in the United States and China owns 60% of all the industries. That's insane. That is they're going to rape and pillage everything you have because it's not their country. Profit is the only thing they're looking for. They will destroy everything. And we're letting that happen today, just like how Bill Gates controls all the farmland. He's essentially a foreign interest. So what do? I buy land and don't sell, right? I don't know what we do. But so they basically, like I just said, that same trick that I talked about with what the CIA does. They come to your country, like in Guatemala, which I always bring up the Guatemalan story, but the guy wanted his best for his people. He wanted to kick United Fruit. He was going to allow United Fruit Company to stay because it owned everything in the country, but he was going to do land reform. Only the land that they weren't even growing on, he was going to give back to these peasant farmers who had nothing, that were chained together while they were working. Well, the CIA called him a communist. They pounded him with propaganda, pounded him in the papers. Then they paid for a coup, and I always forget the statistics. I think it was 4 million people total in Guatemala. 500,000 to 1 million people were slaughtered, disappeared, all these things because the CIA and the dictator they put in was horrible. Oh, my computer's lagging. Hopefully everyone can hear me. All right. But Condor launched in Argentina in 1969. All right, keep looking at the camera to make sure it's working. Can everybody hear me that's in the chat? If you can, just put like yes if you don't mind. But so Operation Condor was the South America version of Operation Glado. So they returned to this guy, Perón, who was in exile because he was a horrible president. And they returned him to Argentina as the current president in the general election. His wife was his vice president. And Licio Gelli, the worshipful master of P2, attended the ceremony. The president of Argentina got down on his knee and kissed the hand of Licio Gelli. Totally normal behavior, right? By a president kissing a foreign person's ring, so to speak. The reason why he did that, well, Gelli with the CIA gave over $70 million to Perón, who was kicked out of his own country years prior. And it wasn't the first time, though, that Perón knelt and kissed the ring. He did it also when he became a member of P2. So these groups, they run so deep and worldwide, and we all know that, but I always like, because you hear this stuff in the truther world, like, oh, the Freemasons or whatever, but I like to have things that I can point to that say, clearly this happened. Is that the case now? I don't know, but this has happened in the past, so one would assume things have only gotten worse, that the corruption has increased. In 13 months, though, Perón dies from a heart attack. His wife becomes president. Che Guevara, he was killed by the CIA in 1967. And I don't know enough about Che to I know that he was, they call him a communist. But anytime the CIA labels someone a communist, I don't know if that actually means they were. Maybe again, and somebody could, correct me, but I would assume he probably wanted better for his people in some way, shape, or form than selling them up the river like Perón, the president, was doing. But he still had followers, even though he was killed by the CIA. When you get killed by the CIA, normally Normally, that means you probably were trying to help your people and not sell them. So his followers were causing her stress. In 74, this group, his followers that since he died, killed executives from GM, Ford, Chrysler, and robbed military bases for weapons. So pretty crazy that these people grouped together. 10,000 Argentinas were killed in the struggle. We're about to get to the Pope. The priests in South America realized the corruption that was going on in the church and big business. So the honest priest, and they write up a white paper called the Medellin Papers, basically saying, like, as Catholics and Christians, we need to stand up to this. We are being taken advantage of. We are being lied to. We are being defrauded. I don't know. You know what I mean? And so lots of these priests are creating groups, Christians for Socialism. And the Pope Paul the Sixth, he tries to appease. He reaches out to the Nixon administration, the CIA, Catholic Action. So the CIA with the Pope, with Opus Dei and others, help a guy get elected or get put into power named Pinochet. And Pinochet, another lovely CIA individual, he rounds up any left-wing Christians for Socialism into a stadium. Does he put on a football or a soccer game? He does not. He actually slaughters them all in a football stadium. And you can see why the America is hated by anyone honest, because that's what we do. Just not we, again, I use that word incorrectly. The CIA, that's what these elites do. Disgusting. I mean, how many Pinochet, he was taken into custody in England in 1998. He was mystified by the charges. A big cardinal, on behalf of the Holy Father, the Pope, sent a letter asking the British government to release him. He murdered over 4,000. Wait till you hear that. Pinochet, CIA put into power guy, murdered 4,000 Chileans, tortured 50,000. There was disappearance. So he only killed 4,000. That's the bodies they found. There was hundreds of thousands of people missing, disappeared. Do you think they went on vacation? No, he clearly slaughtered them. And you credit that to our lovely, unregulated, ungoverned, zero oversight CIA. And these are the type of people that the CIA puts into power to, quote unquote, stop communism. And again, it's not the communism they're trying to stop. They want to make sure their guys that are funding them, the Rockefeller likes, all those people, they can continue to just steal everything. And that was how the CIA first got started. They got $200 million from the Rockefeller Fund, and that was their first start. So the CIA, I'm pretty sure, like, if they receive tax dollars, it's very minimal. So one would think maybe they get, enough to like cover salaries of the actual employees, maybe to cover their health benefits. So again, any rational person, like, I never thought of this, but how do you pay? You don't even know how many people are employed, but how do you run all these ops that are tons of money from all these kind of scams? In 75, Bolivia, sponsored by, once again, our friends at the CIA and the Vatican, came up with the Banzer Plan. And he came to power after a 3-day operation with CIA-sponsored coup, relied on a fellow by the name of Klaus Barbie. I don't know if you know that name, but Klaus was a pretty evil guy in Nazi Germany who is now working with the CIA, helping organize coups. Wonderful career trajectory. He recruited a whole mercenary army to fund this Banzer plants. And so what the Banzer, they overthrow the guys in Bolivia. At the time in Bolivia, they're mostly farmers, right? They can't stand up to these military people. They're literal. This is still it's still a third world, but think in 1974, what America looked like how industrialized, and now think of how Bolivia looked. Nowhere near us. So these people have been farmers. That's all they know. They plant cotton because they're selling their cotton. Well, they overthrew the government and they came out to these farmers and they said, you're going to not plant cotton anymore. You're going to plant this thing called the cocoa plant that grows exclusively in South America. The cocoa plant, for those of you who don't know, is what makes cocaine. So in 74 to 1980, cocoa production tripled, exported to Colombian cartel labs, including one ran by the Klaus Barbie. So from Nazi SS to a cocaine lab owner. Crazy, huh? This, though, drove the price of cocaine down, fueling a new market and a rise of the Colombian cartels. So it went from, in 75, it was $1,500 a gram, which is insane, guys. Insane. Like a gram is, as most of you know what a gram looks like, that is nothing for $1,500. And within a decade, it fell to $200 a gram. Obviously, that's like pure and they cut it, but still, a lot, just totally crashed the price. But this was good because now this was an affordable drug. So the CIA, encouraging the Banzer plan and planting all those cocoa plants, created another pipeline between the Colombian cartels and the black neighborhoods of Compton and LA, causing the crack epidemic. So if you guys have seen To Kill a Messenger, which it's about Gary Webb, who reported on this, he broke this story. He committed suicide, 2 shots to the head. He shot himself once. He was dying. He said, "Let me do it again. I don't know if I'm going to die yet." Right. So clearly, that's impossible. You cannot do that twice. But this is why South America has drug cartels, has these Colombian and cocaine cartels, because the CIA wanted another source of income to fight communism in South America. So you have the heroin trade, that's going to fight the communism in Europe and Asia, cocaine for the South. Just sickening. And especially this as someone who has been directly affected by the drug trade. Not that that would have stopped, but the fact that it's so prevalent, and then the CIA promotes degeneracy movies and music, and helps keep the drug trade alive, especially in inner cities. I don't know how these people sleep at night. They if they don't repent, I'm sure they have a spot in hell. Because so now you have all this cash in the South America. You have the same issue you had with Operation Gladio. You need to launder it, and the launderer of choice, the Vatican, 15%. They say, hey, yeah, we'll take some more cash. So they established a chain of shell companies in Panama, Bahamas, and they would send it to their money boy Sindona's banks. One of these shell companies was called Cispline. On any day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, bank days, banks aren't usually open the weekends, it would get $75 million in cash deposits. In duffel bags of cash, it would get $75 million. That's how much money this is. And you guys know the drug trade's huge, but the CIA also funded anti-Marxist groups with this, who would bomb churches or overthrow constitutionally elected governments. And now this is where I thought the Pope part would come in earlier. So our current Pope, I think Pope Francis, but so the dirty war. So I talked last episode about how there was this pink Pope, who was talking with the Soviets, trying to mend relations. And the CIA did not like that. But luckily for them, luckily for the CIA and for capitalism, thank goodness for this, he suddenly dies. He was in perfect health. He dies of, I don't know if this is him, I don't remember, but he suddenly dies. Obviously, it wasn't just an act of God. And the CIA had a second one in line that they chose to pick after that. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility at all that this trend continued, and the CIAs and the NGOs picked the current Pope, who is clearly demonic, says things that are not Christian, total idiot. So this is totally possible, right? In 1976, Argentina, the goal was literally the Third Reich 2.0. So our current Pope right now, he's an Argentinian, and he was a cardinal then, or a priest then, a bishop. He was relatively high up. So this was during this thing called the Dirty War, and it was a CIA-sponsored coup. They killed or disappeared anybody who was pushing leftist propaganda. 7 people a day on average they were killing. Fully endorsed by Ford, by Carter, by Reagan. And this, I say this to really bring the point that they're all evil. There is no good guys. All our heroes are fake, and all of our enemies are Twitter verified. But Henry Kissinger, he was actually very helpful in the organizing, the beginning of this coup, providing all advice all along the way. Listen, if we could just drop the population by... That's my Henry Kissinger again. In 1979, 2 days after the coup, an advisor warned Kissinger, hey, Henry, the military takeover, this will result in a lot of repression and a lot of blood. To which Kissinger replied, yes, but that is our interest. Disgusting, dude. 1 week later, the U.S. Congress approved a request from President Ford to give a cool $50 million to the new regime, the military regime that is disappearing 7 people a week in the name of communism. So Father Bergoglio, that is our current Pope's name, or what he was, Bergoglio. So bodies in this dirty war, they are being dumped from airplanes by the hundreds. Bodies being cut up with saws, burned, drugged, tortured. Children were stolen. Hundreds, literally like hundreds of thousands, or no, let's say thousands of children were being stolen. No one could find them again. There weren't like bodies, mass graves of them. Where were these kids going? Where were they going? I've done a few episodes about this, that I would take a few shots in the dark of what was happening. Father Bergoglio said, the current Pope, I did what I could, but I had little influence. Even 2 of his commie, quote unquote, buddies were tortured for months. And he said so he also refused to defrock, which you guys can understand, like remove the collar, a father who was jailed for life after 7 killings, 42 abductions, and 34 cases of torture. He didn't defrock him. That's the kind of guy a current Pope is. In 2005, a human rights attorney filed criminal suits against Bergoglio for his complicity in kidnappings and torture. He refused to appear in court, invoking his immunity under Argentina law because he is a Catholic figure. And in 2013, he ascended to the throne as Pope Francis #1. Argentinian journalists labeled him Washington's Pope, and that wasn't a compliment. He emerged as the most popular cleric on the planet Earth. Few people even realize that he is the first Pope to be charged with crimes against humanity. That's the kind of guy that is the leader of the Catholic Church. And that's why the Catholic Church, the history of the Catholic is fascinating. And I don't know enough about it, but like the Crusades and all that stuff. But ever since, I don't know when it happened, like Freemasonry was banned with the Knights Templars. That was Pope Clement, I think. And he put out like that papal bull on any Knights Templar, any secret societies, and they banned it. And I think it was, I'm getting too many facts mixed up in my head, but the ironic part is they banned secret societies and Freemasonry because Freemasonry pushes not all are worthy of the architect's knowledge, not all deserve that knowledge. Jesus was a teacher, but not truly our savior. He was like Muhammad or Buddha. So you can't be a Christian and also be a Freemason because these are polar different beliefs. And maybe my old friend that I hang out with, he's like 88. Liv and I help them move stuff. They don't have any kids. And so I'll talk to him about Freemasonry because he was, and he laughs, and he's giving me basic books, and I tell him my theories. And he is a Christian guy. But at the bottom levels, again, these people, they think it's a fraternity, a brotherhood, but they don't know what they're worshiping. And so Father, the Pope, though, was working with P2 the whole time, working with Freemasons, working with the mob, the CIA, all secret societies that were banned by a Pope by death or excommunication. And here he is helping them torture, helping them kidnap anybody that leans left or wants to reform laws in Argentina. The CIA, shockingly, is a secret society in itself, right? These guys eat together, they dine, they live, they socialize with only people in the CIA. And you could see if this, so you were in a, let's even on like our truther community, like say we all lived in the same area, we would kind of ostracize anybody that wasn't in our community, kind of like we do on Twitter. Like that's why we all like listening to each other and get and talking because we have a similar worldview. Well, that's the same thing that the CIA has with their people, except in their mindset, they're these movie star, like, all the TV show, like Jack or Jason Bourne or whatever, like that glamorizes CIA stopping terrorism. Well, they live together. The kids go to school, they vacation together, all this stuff. So in their mind, you can see how they have this like I'm better than the regular folk mindset. I deserve. You guys just you're stupid, useless eaters. Look at our lives. We're like James Bond. And I say this because after 74, after Watergate, some of the CIA operations came to the surface, like MK Ultra and all that stuff like that. And this is where we got the all those things came out, a little bit of it, barely anything. They burned everything else. The Hughes-Ryan Act was passed. And during that, the president must be informed of all covert operations. And once that was passed, the CIA was done. It's a joke again, obviously some light humor. Do you think they inform the president of all covert operations? If it's covert, if it's a secret, they're only going to tell you if they get caught, or maybe they'll tell you if you want to know. And despite this, like I said, they continue their subversive tactics, this time shipping military weapons to the Kurds in northern Iraq. Not like we're going to go to war with them at some point. Despite the Church Committee, Jimmy Carter, during the Iranian hostage, encouraged the CIA not to inform Congress. And the CIA didn't need much encouragement to not do that. Since its creation, it had not informed anyone, let alone anything about them. So who directed the killings, the terror attacks, the coups? Who sanctioned these transactions with the mafia, with the cartels? Who's creating secret armies, bogus banks? Just who is it? It's clearly these people at the top, these corporate socialists, these top levels of the CIA. Like it's literally, and I know you guys know this, but it's just, it needs to be like said, they can do whatever they want. If they get caught, national security. It's disgusting. But let's go back to Michel Tsindonna's purchase of, which was ironic, the name Franklin National Bank in 1972. He bought, I'm just going to say this story, how corrupt he is. Bought it from one of the world's richest men, Lawrence Tisch. He was the CEO of CBS. So here again, we have the CEO of CBS, a major news station, working with the mafia, with P2, with the CIA. And we all know Operation Mockingbird, but here's another fact that it doesn't just go to controlling public opinion. It goes so much deeper. He actually served under Bill Donovan in the OSS. He was also a CFR member. And we all heard of the CFR. And Oddman, my friend, he talks about the CFR all the time. But there's about 1,400 members, elite names of every area staffed, almost every key position of every administration since FDR. Barry Goldwater, who again, you guys know more than me. I don't know. I remember my dad, because my dad's old, he talked about Barry Goldwater, but I can't remember if Barry Goldwater is like a racist or not. But regardless, in his memoirs, he wrote, their goal is to impose a benign stability on the quarreling family of nations through merger and consolidation. They see the elimination, this is huge, they see the elimination of national boundaries and suppression of racial and ethnic loyalties as the most expeditious avenue to world peace. Their rationale rests exclusively on materialism. So this was written like in the 80s, and that, how true is that? They see the elimination of national boundaries. Oh, you're a racist if you don't take migrants in, if you don't take refugees in. You're a racist. And suppression of racial and ethnic loyalties. We all must be the same. We all must be the same. And that was what he realized the CFR was doing that 50 years ago. And look what we have today. He also wrote, since 45, and this was an old book, since 1945, 3 different Republicans have been in the White House for 16 years. 4 Democrats have held for 17 years. No change in foreign or domestic policy direction. And that's true. Regular people, they fight. So as we know, they fight. Oh, Trump, he's the man. Look at Sleepy Joe. They do the same things. What's changed? Maybe like small things. The general form, it gets worse. That's all it is. We lose more value of the dollar. We hate each other a little bit more. And step by step, they just break you down. And then the pendulum, everyone's like, oh, the independents say, oh, this year I'm voting for Republican. And then he does a bad job. This year I'm voting Democrat. And it just keeps swinging. The new president, he'll have a great turnover in personnel, no change in policy. During the Nixon years, Kissinger, CFR, Henry Kissinger, and he was a Nelson Rockefeller protege in charge of foreign policy. When Carter gets elected, Kissinger was replaced with Zbigniew Brzezinski, who is also in the CFR, but he is a David Rockefeller protege. So you think the brothers' foreign policies differ drastically? No, they didn't differ at all. So there is no difference. Lawrence made a financial blunder. Tisch, the guy that sold that Franklin Bank, that Sindona bought, the bank was insolvent. So he owed $211 million, and it was about to cause a Federal Reserve investigation because it was collapsing. So Sindona offered Tisch $40 a share. That was $12 over what the share was currently at, and it just went up because they heard, the stock market heard he was about to buy it. So this bank is about to collapse. He overpays for it by $12 a share. And why? It's about to get investigated. So he purchased it through his holding company. His attorneys were the same firm that Nixon was a partner at. Tisch got his money. Nowhere can it be. He got the money, so like the Fed was happy or the IRS was happy. But nowhere can it be verified that the holding company ever transferred the money. So this means that a deposit of $200 million was given by a ghost, but there was $200 million in this guy's account, just not known from where. No worries, small issue. Who cares? David Kennedy, the Mormon that I was talking about that owned the big bank in Chicago, assumed responsibility for the voting shares. Recently, he was working on Nixon's Secretary of the Treasury before he became an ambassador of NATO. Oh, good. So an ambassador of NATO is involved with serious fraud, with serious drug money, with illicit substances. You get it. That's NATO. There you go. That's the type of person that works for the CFR and NATO. When the deal was announced, one honest journalist in ABC in Italy said he had proof that Sindona was involved with the heroin trade with the American and Sicilian mafia families. What do you think happened to him? Well, 5 months later, he gets contacted by a police officer and says, let's meet up. Probably an honest cop. They meet the day they're meeting, maybe. The day they meet, totally coincidentally. Guys, don't be a conspiracy theorist, please. Yes, was a journalist kidnapped in his office that day? Yeah, he was. Okay, that happens. Did he die? No, he showed up 2 months later in Rome. He told investigators that he was forced to fly around the U.S. to several cities where he was tortured and beaten up and promised not to talk about it. Guys, this stuff happens. Don't be crazy. Judge wanted to learn more about this and open investigation. Well, and guys, again, don't be crazy. So the detective that was going to meet with the journalist that was blowing the cover on Sindona and the CIA, was he killed and shot? Yeah, he was. This happens. He's a cop. This happens. Again, no one's questioning this insane purchase. $12 above market value, an insolvent bank. No one's saying, huh, that's weird. Why would he do that? There lies an elite group in the CFR, as we know, the Trilateral Commission. We're going to get back to this bank story. I don't know why my notes do this, but Rockefeller, he became the chairman, started in 1973, openly admitted they wanted an NWO with multinational corporations and banks. During Operation Condor, Rockefeller would take vacations to South America to tell them how to run their government. Pinochet slaughtering people, Congress shut off its funding because probably some journalist, honest one, said, "Oh my God, this guy that we put into power is slaughtering farmers at an alarming rate." Well, did Congress say, "Okay, we can't," people in America probably up in arms, "Okay, we can't give them any more money." What happens then? Well, Chase Manhattan, Citibank, Morgan Guaranty Trust, and others gave Pinochet $927 million in loans, circumventing American taxpayers' wishes, circumventing foreign policy. That's what they do. And what do you think happened? Pinochet couldn't pay back that $927 million. Do you think they just said, "Oh, well, we tried to help a good guy"? No, they come in and they will steal your resources even more than, "Oh, you have that port? Now it's my port. Oh, you nationalize your electric company? We're going to privatize it. We'll create the infrastructure for you. You can pay us back monthly on installments, like college loans, where you just pay the interest unless you pay huge money." But back to the bank. In 74, it's totally worthless. Stocks are worth 2 cents a share. In 3 years or 4 years, he paid $40 a share, and now it is worth 2 cents a share. Tons of bleeding. It needs to be stopped. Who's going to save the day? You and me. We're going to save the day. So the Fed came in. They gave them $2 billion of our tax dollars. Why not, guys? They did it again. They did it again. And we can have no recourse. Except, well, I always end with a happy note. We do have recourse. We can get through it. But so they gave him $2 billion of your tax dollars. And in 1975, the executive of this fraud bank pled guilty to fraud. He got 3 years, $20,000 in fines. Ooh, they showed him. No charges against Kennedy, the Mormon who controlled the voting, NATO guy. No charges against Sindona. Kennedy, it probably had nothing to do with the fact that Kennedy and was buddies with a guy named Burns, who was the chairman of the Fed at that point, were appointees to the Nixon administration and also CFR and Trilateral Commission. I'm sure it had nothing to do with that at all. That's not why they didn't they probably didn't do anything wrong. Sedona's other banks hemorrhaging, Vatican and CIA funds as well. He just dumps the same thing. In 74, he called Sedona. Gelli, our P2 leader, Freemason leader, said, "You got to get out of Italy. They're getting warrants for you." He goes to Sedona, he goes to New York, where the mafia and CIA protect him. His kids stay in a lovely hotel, all protected by the mob and the CIA. He's in this really fancy area. I'm trying to see how many pages I have left for my, so you have an idea here. Oh, gosh, guys. Oh, gosh. I don't know. All right. But anyway, so he comes back to New York. He works at Sedona. He comes back to New York. He starts, yes, he's open warrants for him in Italy. And this just shows you how crap colleges are. He becomes a lecturer at Ivy League colleges, a guy that is defrauding billions of dollars, laundering drug money, is lecturing at University of Penn, at Columbia. The same time he's being sentenced in absentia by a Milan court for embezzling millions. So the Ivy Leagues liked him, and that describes our Ivy League college systems, doesn't it? That's the people they have speak. It has not changed. The Pope had lost $1 billion to Sedona, closed all doors of working him. They begin an extradition process to get Sedona back to Italy. And what happened? Do you think he gets? No, he gets all his distinguished contacts to protest for him. And the newspapers, like always, this is a communist plot to bring down industrialists. He is the protector of the working class. Sedona has no idea what a working class, none of these people do. And that's what they wrote in the New York Times, all over. One defender who was a president of the Supreme Court of Rome, who made this communist plot, and he was a leading member of P2. Then the U.S. came at him with bankruptcy charges. Because probably they had to put something on. He was causing untold damage. So how did he beat that? Well, he beat that because lawyers, as crooked as they are, and our laws are written to be deceitful, they say, "Oh no, this is guys, this is double jeopardy. He can't be charged for the same crime in Italy and America. He's done. He's free. We can't charge him twice." So he remained free after that. Another guy brings up, he has evidence that Sindona and Gelli are laundering cash for the Vatican, heroin dealings. Well, what do you think happened to that guy? Well, that man was shot and killed. 2 days later, the other evidence-wielding man and his chauffeur get killed. Then another cop with evidence gets shot and killed. Totally random. I know what you guys are thinking. Again, it is not a conspiracy that everybody that had this evidence was killed. It was more like that just happened to be. It was not planned. They didn't go after him. Sindona is now feeling untouchable. He's trying to continue his plan of annexing Sicily from Italy. No small feat. And Nixon approved it in 72. He said, we would send units to help you annex Sicily to be the 51st state. But this is in 1979. He meets with mob bosses, says he needs 200 more men and guns for the coup. Before this could happen, he had another guy that was testifying against him, who was stuck in this horrible prison in Venezuela for 3 years. He's thinking, okay, well, this guy's gone. He's disappeared. He's not going to testify against me. And we'll get back to Sindona pretty soon here. Let me just see how many pages we got left. So I don't want to keep you guys too long. We'll go like 10 more minutes. But Sindona, this guy's on trial, and we'll come back to he's going to get tried, but we'll see. He escapes to Italy. But so let's go real quick. So by 1970, the mafia had countless labs for processing heroin. I talked about first episode, they worked with the Parisian mafia, which is in France, because they were very well versed in lab working the heroin. They set them up because they didn't need them anymore. They set up raids from Interpol, reduce competition. Like Whitey Bulger did that in Boston, who was a CIA informant, killing people constantly, selling drugs, running the gangs in Boston. His brother was a congressman or a senator. CIA. He was an informant. So he never got arrested and had essentially total free to do whatever he wanted. Communism. That's why we allow him to slaughter people. Communism. By 1971, 500,000 heroin addicts in the U.S., producing $12 billion a year, 41% of drug deaths linked to dope. 30% of American servicemen in Vietnam became heroin addicts because we're growing it over there. We're protecting these fields. We always go into wars in places that were growing poppies, and now they get a government that doesn't want them to grow poppies. You can bet your bottom dollar that America's going to bring some good old American freedom to your home front door. Heroin was being smuggled back in the body bags of dead servicemen. Be proud of our honored fallen soldiers. Okay, so yeah, are we putting narcotics in their bag? Yeah, I mean we are. We still care for them. And the DA finds out they want to bust them, warned off by superiors. Just continues, more banks opening up under Glado, and Paul Helliwell, who I talked about in the beginning of the episode. Helliwell, not only did he help Disney get all that land in Florida, come up with Operation Glado and start the heroin epidemic, he also organized the entire Caribbean banking circuit and Panamanian shell companies. Great things to be remembered for. He also ran this company, Sea Supply. Sea Supply. What does Sea Supply do? Because the CIA, again, opens companies with no oversight. It was one of the ways they were transporting the heroin and to different locations. He was also an advisor to LBJ. His bank one of the laundries he set up, Castle Bank, was joined to the hip with another CIA bank, Mercantile Bank. Castle owned stock in Mercantile and vice versa. They shared the same directors. They would work with the bank worked with this American conglomerate international corporation. This was started by a OSS agent, and this is going to be important. CV Star. This evolved into a giant multinational company. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called AIG, American International Group. So AIG, I feel like they advertise on soccer games, got their start by working with Castle and Mercantile, two shell banks open to sell heroin. That's our corporations there. And in 76, Mercantile was closed after Bahamian government discovered its holdings were worthless. Pretty crazy that this happened. That it was worthless, because you want to know why it was insane. It was wild. This was such a shock. Well, Price Waterhouse, if you guys don't know Price Waterhouse, it's one of the largest, most prestigious accounting firms in the country, possibly the world, certified Mercantile Bank 2 months earlier that they had $25 billion in assets. Whoops, they carried a few zeros incorrectly, I guess. That's probably what happened. The assets that they had at $25 billion of were loans given to unidentified individuals. That was their asset. It was a loan they gave out to people that you didn't know who they were. And the money vanished into the agency's black hole. So they would open these banks, crash them, open another. And I say this to say that these huge multi-billion-dollar industries, that companies we know, we buy their products, we're all helping concealing and dealing black money, black market money. In 77, the IRS launched an investigation, had a grand jury assembled, the whole 9 yards, cases called off. The CIA told the Justice Department this trial would endanger national security. And I keep going, banks and assassinations like William Colby. He was an OSS guy. He started a bank. He was a Vatican insider, Knight of Malta. He was the guy that ran Operation Phoenix, where they ran psychological torture programs on the villagers and innocent civilian people in Vietnam. Basically, the forerunner to see how much psychological trauma they could run on these people. And then they brought it home to America, hence our serial killers. That was the same tactic they used in Vietnam. Fear to remove liberties. On and on. All right, yeah, we're almost done, actually. So this is perfect. So let me just see. So by the 1980s, guys, the Southeast Asia could no longer remain the main source of heroin creation, revenue for Glado. New pop demand is high, baby. We got to get that supply going. So new poppies had to be planted in new countries with better climates. Now, and the CIA has not ridded the world of communism, people, so they cannot stop dealing heroin. I'm sorry. If your family's addicted, we're fighting communism here. We got to stop them. And we can't do it without selling narcotics. Simple as that. Simple as that. So you better accept it. Communism's coming for you. Yeah, maybe your neighbor down the street is overdosing on fentanyl, but we're stopping communism. In 1978, Pope Paul VI had a heart attack, and the new Pope John Paul I, called for a reform. So before his death, he left instructions how the previous Pope meetings were bugged. So when they were picking a new one, he said you need to essentially imprison all the cardinals, get them searched, not allowed to leave, no windows, no running water. So the meeting might not have been bugged. He avoided that part, but it was yet again rigged. The CIA did not want a pink Pope again, so they needed, who they wanted. So the Pope John Paul I was chosen. He pledged to follow in his predecessor's footsteps. He meets with the IOR, the Vatican Bank, about how they're furthering religious works. That's what they do with all their black market money. Which is weird because 11,000 accounts in the IOR bank. There's 11,000 accounts at this time. Fewer than 1,600 served as ecclesiastical clause. So the 9,400 banks were slush funds for special friends of the church. So you can imagine what a special friend is to the top people at the IOR, the Vatican Bank. So John Paul I, he's informed about an investigation of how $2 billion moving around with Sedona's companies and real estate that was fraudulent. Well, that investigation ended quickly when the magistrate that was investigating this fraud, he was gunned down by 5 people at a traffic light. John Paul, though, could not catch a break. Next, an article comes out how 121 leading Catholic clerics were members of a Masonic lodges with ties to P2. And like I said earlier, this is not allowed in Catholic Church. The Pope researchers, to make sure it's true, he finds out his most trusted secretary and all these people are members. And maybe this guy wasn't so corrupt. Maybe he was an idiot, and that's why they picked him. He was way over his head. One time, like he was holding a speech and all the papers he had, and they blew out of his hands, and he had to lie in his bed and pray to the rosary until they were found. He kept digging more and more about the corruption in his institution, and the timing could not be worse. Issues with the CIA, fake banks, poppy fields ending, and now a key player, the Pope, who they need on their side, is digging into what's going on. And this is Pope John Paul I. So he seemed like a good guy, but death fixes all. The morning after John Paul made the announcements that he was going to start cleaning things up in the IOR, coincidentally, again, not a conspiracy, he dies. The sister, the nun who found him, said he was dead with a grimace, with paper in his hands and his eyeballs popping from his sockets. Cardinal Villot, who's like this bigwig, in moments he arrives fully. It's right in the morning. The nun found him at 4 a.m. But this big wig guy comes in fully shaved, groomed in his full church attire at 5 a.m. This is before cell phones, right? This man like is either Barry Allen, the Flash, or because he lived over like 40 minutes away. So how did he get there in 20 minutes? Roll out of bed, like what? He wakes up at 3 to hit the gym. And this Pope had his will, glasses, and slippers taken, never seen again. The sister who found him, no one knows her real name. Why don't they know her real name? Because she was kicked out of the church and died. She disappeared. They killed her. By 6 a.m., 2 morticians show up in an official vehicle, which is crazy because, again, no cell phones. And even though no popes are ever embalmed, these 2 start injecting embalming fluid right into the body of John Paul, which is not normal. They normally drain the body first of blood before doing this. Regardless, you know what this did? It rendered an autopsy impossible. And it didn't just stop there. They said he was reading, the cardinal, the bigwig, he was reading, dry mouth, Imitation of Christ. Even though it could not be found in the Cardinal Villot, he just kept getting caught in lies. The Pope wasn't reading homilies or a Bible. He was reviewing the details of his bank and the corruption, deciding what changes he was going to need to make, I'm assuming, within the Vatican. Italian law dictates no embalming fluid can be undertaken until 24 hours after the death. And for a Pope, I'd imagine a little bit more. Nope, John Paul's they did it right within an hour. His personal doctor said he was in great health, low blood pressure. And then so this bigwig cardinal says another story, said, oh no, the real reason wasn't a heart attack, but the Pope accidentally had taken a fatal overdose of his blood pressure medicine. And he didn't want the autopsy because he was worried people would think he committed suicide. So cool. After 33 days as the Pope, 33. Weird, right? What are the odds of that? 33 days, Pope John Paul was dead, killed, and the CIA candidate John Paul II was the new Pope. I think we'll end there. That's a good spot to end because we got more Pope stories to go. So let me just mark this as stop. An hour and a half, so good. So we'll do our part 3 to finish out how this story ends. So basically, guys, again, we see the CIA, the Vatican, industrial, huge corporations involved in laundering. And Wells Fargo just got in trouble like 4 years ago for laundering cartel people's money. Where do you think they put it? You don't think they can't keep it all in cash? No, they all work together. The drug epidemic, again, I said this last episode, every single block in Philadelphia has a different type of heroin run by a different group. Who's getting this to them? These people aren't criminal masterminds that are working. They're barely making like probably $15 an hour. Do you think they're talking to cartels in Puerto Rico or in Mexico and how they're sneaking it up here? No, they're not doing that. Dude, someone at the top is an informant, so they're protected. They can bring it in. They can make some small arrests like regular cops here and there, maybe some bigger ones once in a while. Then that cop, he'd pass it off to a superior, so on and so on. I bet those drugs just get recycled back into the system. I guarantee, I'd be very surprised if they actually burn all the drugs. And again, I already said this, they're not after the drugs, they're after the cash, because the cash goes back to the police station and it just perpetuates this cycle of disgustingness. So that's the show, guys. I am Jack Allen. Please go follow me on Twitter at Kojak Podcast. I'll put all the stuff in the links. Conspiracy or JAC on Instagram. And if you want to support the show, my Venmo is at Conspiracy or JAC. Jesse CT6. He just supported me, so thank you, dude. I had another wonderful lady before Christmas, Darcia, and I know I'm saying that wrong. So if you want to send me a message, I can put your link, your handle in the bio. But I hope you guys had a wonderful week. And again, I always like to end on a positive note. The way to change is we start with ourselves, right? That's all we can do. And our energy, or our happiness, our thirst for knowledge will inspire others. Like I tell all about my reading at work. My dad's starting to read. And no, he's just reading The Alchemist, which is a good book. I read it with Liv on vacation. We can inspire others to read. We can inspire others to learn and to better themselves. And eventually, that's how we wake enough people up. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Susan. And Jesse, thank you. Jesse said, lick the badge. I made a tweet earlier because I told Liv Allen that I am invincible from what, because I don't believe in things I can't see except for God. She said, then lick this badge, her nursing badge. So I put that up on Twitter. So we'll see, Jesse, if I'm going to, she says she wipes it down after every patient. But all right, guys, go follow me if you want to support the show. Awesome. Leave a review if you can. They mean the world to me. And that's it, guys. So have a wonderful day. Tomorrow I'm going to be on Bob's show. And then we'll finish this next Wednesday, part 3. We got a lot of stuff to get to. We're going to talk about how they tried to assassinate a pope through communists. What happens to Michelle Sindona? What happens to Gelly, who was at Reagan's inauguration, gifted $12 million unvouchered CIA funds? That's good. Foreign Freemason lodge leader given $12 million. I don't know, unvouchered CIA funds. What does that mean? But yeah, so go follow me, link, subscribe on YouTube, retweet the show or whatever. And thanks for listening, guys. Have an awesome rest of your week, and we'll talk soon. Peace.